The crying kids and the wife who doesn't do housework are just in the way. Upon returning home from visiting her parents, Emery was greeted by these unbelievable harsh words from her brother-in-law, Mark. To make matters worse, Mark left Emery and her child behind at our house and went back alone. The worst. Was Mark always hiding his true nature? The action I took, shaking with anger. My name is Violet. I retired last year after working for many years. I have a daughter named Emery. When Emery was 5 years old, her father fell ill and passed away. Since then, I've raised Emery with all my love, by myself. Emery has always been a kind child. She sometimes felt lonely without her father, but grew up to be a bright and honest good child. At the age of 25, Emery married a man named Mark and became a housewife. Emery and her family live in an apartment an hour away by train from my house. One day, I received a call from Emery. "Mom, I'm pregnant." I was overjoyed to hear about Emery's pregnancy. "That's wonderful. How are you feeling? If there's anything I can do, just let me know. Congratulations," I said, offering my blessings. Imagining a bright future, I even started thinking about passing on my house to Emery and her family someday. Hoping for the health of both mother and child, I spent my days looking forward to the birth of a healthy baby boy. Emery decided to come back home for about a month with her son after giving birth, and I did everything I could to support Emery so she could rest a bit. Bathing, changing diapers, feeding milk. Taking care of a baby after so long was challenging but fulfilling, and most importantly, my grandson was so adorable that I was motivated to do anything. Emery tried to do as much as she could on her own, but I always told her not to overdo it postpartum. Thinking of Emery's health, I prepared nutritious meals. "Mom, thank you so much. This really helps," Emery would always say, expressing her gratitude. I was enjoying life with Emery and my grandson, but one thing bothered me. Emery's husband, Mark, hardly ever came to our house. I thought it was normal for a husband to come and see his wife and child. 2 weeks later, Mark finally came to our house. However, he barely exchanged a few words with Emery and didn't even bother to look at the baby sleeping in the crib on his own. Emery picked up the baby to show him, but Mark showed little interest. I suggested to Mark, "Why don't you stay over tonight?" But Mark declined, saying, "No, I'm busy with work, so I'll pass," and left soon after. I felt uneasy about Mark's indifferent behavior, showing no affection for the baby or consideration for Emery, but I continued to support Emery and take care of my grandchild with dedication. After that, Mark never showed his face again. A month flew by, and it was time for Emery and my grandson to return home. Feeling lonely again, I hoped the family of 3 would support each other. Even though Mark had a lukewarm response when he visited, living with the baby might gradually nurture his paternal instincts. Maybe he only came once because he was really busy with work. Convincing myself of this, I hoped for Emery's happiness. But a week later, when I noticed noise at the front door, I found Emery, my grandson, and Mark. Emery looked pale and worn out. Mark was saying to Emery, "The crying kid and you, not doing housework, are both in the way. Stay at your parents' house for a while." I was shocked into silence. Noticing me, Mark lazily said, Violet, please take care of the kid for a while. I'm leaving Emery here too." Violet, please take care of the kid for a while. I'm leaving Emery here too." And tried to leave. I was about to yell at Mark, but held back when I saw Emery tightly holding the baby. "Yes, that's fine." My voice was strained, but Mark, seemingly indifferent, said, "I'll come to pick them up eventually," and left without a second glance at Emery or the baby. After inviting Emery and the baby inside and asking what happened, Emery suddenly started crying. Comforting her, I was stunned by what she finally managed to say. Mom, Mark says he's bothered by me and the baby. Upon asking for details, it turned out Mark would rage about the baby's crying and his inability to work from home. Mark's company allows him to work from home a couple of days a week. He also berated Emery, believing extreme articles online about perfect parenting and housekeeping during maternity, or unrealistic knowledge about pregnancy and childbirth. Why is the house such a mess? There are dishes piling up. Don't use childcare as an excuse for your laziness. He criticized Emery for neglecting housework due to childcare, despite not helping at all. Finally, he left Emery and the baby at our doorstep, saying, "The crying kid and the wife who doesn't do housework are just in the way. Take care of them at your parents' house for a while," and went back alone. After hearing Emery's story, I felt a surge of anger and immediately contacted Mark's parents. When I told them about Mark's treatment of Emery, they said, "Well, but please understand Mark's feelings. It's unpleasant if a house is messy." I was speechless with astonishment. They even said, "We wish Emery would be more considerate of Mark." To which I calmly replied, "It's ridiculous to put all the burden on Emery without helping with childcare or housework." I continued to lecture them. Eventually, Mark's parents seemed to understand what I was saying. When I called Mark himself and lectured him, "You're always complaining to Emery, but have you ever changed the baby's diaper or fed him milk even once? As a married couple, you need to cooperate." Mark wouldn't listen. Instead, he said, "Speaking of which, Violet, you mentioned before about giving us your house. When will that be?" Completely ignoring Emery and the baby to inquire about the house, he said in a frivolous tone, "Our current apartment is too small, so I really want to move into your larger house soon." Aghast, I replied, "I'll hand it over once you come to properly take Emery and the baby and can live together as a family," and hung up the phone. Was Mark always like this? I feel so sorry for Emery. Mark seemed like a perfect gentleman during family meetings, but I'm shocked he was hiding his true nature. Emery must have only seen the good in Mark when deciding to marry him. It's no exaggeration to say she was deceived. For now, I must protect them until Mark properly comes to pick them up. And so, our life together, with me, Emery, and my grandson, began. Emery gradually regained her spirits, and my grandson grew up healthily. 7 months later, when Mark finally came to pick them up, he was stunned to see our house. "What the? Why is everything gone?" The site was cleared. In a panic, Mark called Emery. On the phone, Mark yelled, "Hey! Why is the house gone? What happened to the promise of giving us the house? And where are you guys now?" To this, Emery calmly demanded a divorce, saying, "You finally showed up? It's too late. The child, Mom, and I have moved. Let's get a divorce." Actually, since Mark didn't come to pick them up for a long time, I sold the house and cleared the land. If he had come sooner and sincerely apologized to Emery, things might have been different, but since there was no sign of that, I decided to sell the property. By then, Emery had already resolved to divorce Mark. I hadn't expected him to come after 7 months. During this time, we managed to find a strong lawyer for the divorce and a new place to live with the money from the sale of the house, so maybe the timing was right in a way. But it was way too late. What did he think of Emery and our grandson? Mark screamed, "Divorce! Why would it come to that? I will never agree to it. Tell me where you've moved to, I'll come." But Emery responded, "I will never tell you. I'll send the divorce papers by mail, please sign them," and hung up the phone. We didn't move to a neighboring city but to a distant one, buying a spacious apartment with the money from the house sale. With a large park nearby and supermarkets and drugstores within walking distance, it's a great location for raising a child. Emery and I are completely satisfied with our new apartment, enjoying a relaxed life of parenting. Mark often called afterward, only saying, "I will never agree to a divorce." Emery reiterated her request for a divorce, saying, "If you could ignore us for 7 months, we must not be needed. Please come to terms with it and agree to the divorce." But Mark threatened, "Do you plan on taking away my parents' first grandchild?" However, Emery informed him, "Your parents have been visiting regularly, so they're well aware of the child's growth. Actually, after I lectured them over the phone, Mark's parents changed their minds, apologized to us, and even came to our doorstep to offer a deep apology for their rudeness. They repeatedly tried to persuade Mark to pick up Emery and the child, but he refused to listen. They disowned Mark, saying, 'A person like that is no son of ours,' and urged him to agree to the divorce quickly. Mark panicked. 'Why are you suddenly saying this? Dad, Mom, that's terrible.' They cut him off. 'You had 7 months. We're severing ties with you as parents.' Emery coldly told Mark, 'Your parents have disowned you, haven't they? I also want to sever ties with you as soon as possible through divorce.' Disowned by his own parents and abandoned by his wife, Mark finally conceded to the divorce. Regarding custody, although Mark said, 'I want the custody,' Emery countered, 'I want the custody.' Emery countered, 'You've never even changed a diaper. What are you talking about?' Naturally, Emery was granted custody. Mark ended up paying child support in a lump sum, and the divorce was finalized. Initially, Mark wanted to pay child support in installments, but Emery insisted on a lump sum, not trusting him, so Mark reluctantly agreed. This left Mark almost broke, leading to a life of poverty after paying child support in one go. Thinking that remarrying Emery would bring back the child support, Mark began frequently demanding to remarry. "Emery, I'm really sorry. I won't blame you anymore. I can even tolerate a bit of mess and change diapers occasionally. Let's remarry." Mark said ridiculously, but Emery replied, "You still don't understand what you did wrong. I don't see any willingness to cooperate. Anyway, even if you changed now, I would never remarry you." Mark still hadn't grasped the concept of cooperating on childcare and housework as a couple, continuing to make irrelevant remarks. Emery said, "Since I've already received the child support, there's no need for us to communicate anymore. I'm blocking you. Goodbye." And blocked Mark. Both I and Mark's parents also blocked him. Emery expressed relief. "I feel so refreshed. It's a liberating feeling." Later, when Mark found it difficult to pay his apartment rent and return to his parents' home, he discovered it was for sale. Standing in front of the now empty lot, he muttered, "You've got to be kidding. Did Dad and Mom sell the house too?" Having lost his home, Mark was at a loss and reluctantly returned to his apartment, leading a lonely and impoverished life. Soon, whispers and rumors about him began to spread among the neighbors. The word was that he had driven away his wife and child with his selfish behavior, and even his own parents had disowned him. Since Emery was well liked by the neighbors, they looked down on Mark, saying, "To treat such a wonderful DIL so terribly." Even going to the convenience store near his house became a challenge for Mark, as he was conscious of people's stares, resorting to sneaking out late at night. Moreover, news of Mark's misconduct had spread at his workplace, resulting in cold treatment from everyone. Mark had a tendency to arrogantly believe everything he read online, and he wasn't very popular at work to begin with. This incident further lowered Mark's standing at work, and he was even lectured directly by a senior female colleague with experience in child rearing. As a result, Mark found no peace either at work or home, leading a life of discomfort. Stress led him to gambling, starting with a casual visit to a pachinko parlor, eventually spiraling into a life of debt. His gambling addiction led to a nocturnal lifestyle, resulting in unauthorized absences and napping during work hours, until he was finally fired. Evicted from his apartment, Mark was forced to move to a cheap, run-down property. Unable to secure stable employment, he scraped by with day labor. His gambling continued unabated, and his debt only grew larger. Despite everything, Mark never considered his own actions to blame, ranting into the night. "Why do I have to suffer like this? Damn it all!" His loud complaints resulted in complaints from neighbors and even attention from the police, showing no sign of redemption. Meanwhile, I thoroughly enjoy living with Emery and my grandson, occasionally having tea with Mark's parents, maintaining a good relationship. Mark's parents moved about 30 minutes away by car and have completely cut ties with him, determined never to help him again, no matter what. They have no intention of telling him their new address. My grandson is soon turning 1. We plan to celebrate his first birthday grandly with Emery and Mark's parents. Though he lacks a father, Emery, I, and all of us together plan to give him all the love we can. Emery has grown stronger both as a mother and as a woman, currently in the midst of job hunting. She's more vibrant and radiant than ever. I look forward to supporting Emery and witnessing my grandson's growth. Pack my stuff too and make sure you handle it with care. Naturally, I'll be taking the biggest room, Vincent declared as the moving day to our new home approached. My husband Kendrick and I were busy with preparations for the move. It was during this time that Vincent, Kendrick's unemployed brother who lives with us, insisted we pack and transport his belongings as well. "That house is perfect for someone elite like me, so I'll be coming along," he added. My name is Rachel, a 29-year-old working mother with a job in medical administration. Kendrick, also 29, is a salaried employee. Despite our busy schedules, we manage to divide household chores. I take care of meals and laundry, while Kendrick handles cleaning. We enjoy a close relationship, spending our weekends traveling and leading a fulfilling life together. One day, Kendrick received a call from his friend Tarek. "I've decided to start a new company. You were interested in this industry, right? After giving it some thought, I realized I need your skills. Please, join me in this venture," Tarek passionately pitched. After some contemplation, considering Kendrick had shown interest in this field before his current job, I encouraged him to accept Tarek's offer, which he did. Tarek lives in a location far from where we currently reside, prompting us to decide on moving to work together. Tarek's father, a successful businessman, caught wind of our situation and generously offered to prepare a home for Kendrick and me. The house, with its trendy design and sophisticated interior, excited both of us. 2 months before the move, we received a call from Kendrick's mother, Cordelia, about his father, Taylor, who had been hospitalized following an accident. It seems Taylor will have lasting effects from his injuries and will need to move into a care facility, but there's no immediate availability. He can be admitted by the end of next month, so could you help support Taylor until then? Not long ago, Taylor was involved in an accident and had been living in the hospital. While his life wasn't in danger, he was left with aftereffects that made walking difficult without a cane or assistance. We were planning to hire a home health aide, but since they wouldn't be available 24/7, there was a desire to have more hands on deck. Despite hearing that living together for caregiving often leads to trouble, my relationship with my in-laws has always been very positive, without any issues. They've even given me gifts from their travels and celebrated my birthday, showing their care for me regularly. So, we happily agreed to Cordelia's request to move in and assist with Taylor's care until our move. Cordelia then whispered something difficult to say. "Thank you. But, there's one thing I need you to promise." Hearing this promise left me in shock. Since moving in with the in-laws, our relationship remained as good as ever, except for one thing: Vincent, Kendrick's brother, who was always a source of concern. Vincent, 2 years Kendrick's senior, was notably gifted, easily gaining admission to a prestigious university. Afterward, he secured a position at a well-known, leading corporation, but reportedly quit soon due to an inability to mesh with the workplace culture. For a time, he seemed keen on re-employment, but lately, he dismisses job opportunities, scoffing, "An elite like me shouldn't settle for such conditions." Currently, he sporadically works part-time jobs for leisure money while residing at his parents' home. Despite efforts to encourage his departure, Vincent's imposing nature often led to confrontations. Even after changing the locks, he would ambush the in-laws, forcefully enter the house, and replicate the keys to maintain his presence without concern. Living with someone like that, I knew wouldn't be easy, and indeed it was as I feared. In Vincent's eyes, Kendrick was the failure of a brother, and I was the incompetent DIL brought by the failure. Despite prior discussions about cohabiting for Taylor's care, Vincent demanded, "Hey Rachel, I'm starving. Isn't dinner ready yet? Why am I having fish? I was in the mood for meat today, you incompetent woman. The room's getting messy, clean it up. And don't touch the stuff on the shelves," making me handle nearly all his personal needs. Of course, I ignored most of Vincent's demands, but he would still consume meals prepared for Taylor or leave his trash in front of my room as he pleased. Even reluctantly caring for Vincent elicited no thanks, only a sense of entitlement. After returning from work on weekdays, I'd start on household chores and assist with Taylor's care, making for hectic days. Moreover, Vincent treated me like a servant, repeatedly boasting about his university and corporate experiences, taking up my time. I considered leaving multiple times, but convinced myself to endure it just for the 2 months until we moved to our new home. Since our stay was temporary, we hadn't unpacked much, simplifying the moving process. Now, we just awaited the completion of our house to transfer our belongings. One day, Vincent woke up past noon as usual, looked at the leftover lunch, and sneered at the poor meal before mockingly laughing at us. "Hey, incompetent woman, make sure my stuff is moved into the biggest room. Handle it carefully, don't you dare scratch anything. When are you moving, Vincent? Let me know the address, and I'll arrange the movers for you," I replied. At that, Vincent sighed deeply, berating me for a while for being useless and stupid. Then, he started accusing Kendrick of snooping through his computer and emails. That house seems decent enough, though living there is the true test. The location and layout seem good. Plus, with a supermarket nearby, Rachel can quickly get anything I need. He noted after apparently reviewing our new home's details, asserting his move with us. Of course, an elite like me will take the largest room. He sneered, prompting me to bite back a retort, but I held back. Smiling, I simply agreed and ended the conversation with Vincent. Behind me, Vincent's delusions about the new home continued, envisioning a scenario where he, the non-contributor, was supported by Kendrick and me working tirelessly from dawn to dusk. That night, I shared Vincent's behavior with Kendrick, Cordelia, and Taylor. "Rachel, do you remember the promise?" Cordelia asked. "Yes, of course. I've told Vincent we would pack his things," I replied, nodding solemnly to Cordelia, who then sighed deeply. On moving day, thanks to thorough preparation, our transition to the new home went smoothly without any hitches. With Tarek's help, we were able to finish unpacking earlier than planned on the day of the move. The fresh scent of the new construction, combined with the sophisticated design of the exterior, entrance, and the functional storage spaces throughout the rooms, made us truly feel the start of our new life, lifting our spirits. That night, Kendrick, Tarek, and I celebrated our new home and the future of our company, opening the champagne Tarek brought, and enjoyed ourselves until late into the night. The next morning, in our new home, I received a call from Vincent. Answering the phone with my head still foggy from the alcohol, Vincent angrily demanded, "Hey, what's the meaning of this? Why are my things still here?" Kendrick quickly took the phone from me and calmly explained, "We did exactly as you asked, placing your belongings in the largest room. Isn't that what you wanted?" Indeed, we did place Vincent's belongings in the largest room, just as he had instructed us to. That room was the living room of the family home where we had all lived together. Vincent, having been lied to about the moving day, went out as usual and returned in the morning to find the house empty. He was utterly confused, unable to grasp the situation. Interrupting his tirade of insults, Kendrick firmly informed him of the future of their parents' house. "Also, Vincent, you need to leave soon. Dad sold the house during the move, so you can't live there anymore." Vincent, stunned, began loudly calling for Taylor and Cordelia. However, Taylor had already moved into a care facility, and Cordelia had started living alone in a small apartment nearby, so no one was there. "Are you kidding me? Leaving me behind and doing whatever you please? You're the one joking, Vincent. Thinking you can just show up at your brother's place and have everyone take care of you is insane." Kendrick, having lost all admiration for Vincent, who was once considered elite, ended the call with a sigh, showing his frustration. He rejected all return calls and even blocked Vincent's number, finally freeing us from his burden. A week after moving, I received a call from a friend living near our old family home and took the opportunity to inquire about Vincent's current situation. Vincent, it seems, had refused to leave the family home, believing it impossible to sell a house with someone still living in it. The real estate company, brought in by Taylor to handle the sale, found itself at a loss with Vincent and issued eviction notices from both Taylor and the company. Only after such measures did Vincent finally accept the sale was real. He attempted to cancel the sale, but since the property belonged to Taylor, Vincent's protests were in vain, leading to repeated eviction notices from the real estate company, almost reaching a legal standoff before Vincent reluctantly left the house. Vincent, relying on an address he found snooping on Kendrick's computer, attempted to come to our new home but was shocked to find himself at a police station. Kendrick had anticipated Vincent might look through his computer and deliberately placed false information where it would easily be found. By not locking the computer, to avoid Vincent possibly destroying it, Kendrick left the nearest police station's address, along with some interior photos from a remodeling company, tricking Vincent completely. Vincent then headed to the care facility where Taylor was residing, but faced with the reality that Taylor, now a resident, couldn't possibly take care of him. Vincent was declared estranged face-to-face. With no way to reach Cordelia, Vincent was left in despair and began living in a cheap apartment. Initially hanging out with friends, Vincent was forced to start working part-time jobs as he now had to pay his rent and utility bills. His educational background and corporate experience quickly landed him jobs. But his discriminatory attitude and pride in his elite status didn't change, leading to swift resignations from each new job. Eventually, interviewers turned away from Vincent due to his extensive history of short-lived jobs, seeing him as problematic. Vincent finally realized that his prized educational background and corporate experience were of no value. When we met by chance at a supermarket, Vincent appeared thin and worn, struggling even for food, his clothes tattered. Upon seeing me, Vincent desperately clung to me, and I conveyed Cordelia's directive. We were told by Cordelia not to provide any assistance to you, Vincent. You're no longer considered a son, and even if you struggle with money or need food, we were asked not to help. Hearing this, Vincent collapsed to his knees. Before cohabiting, Cordelia had warned us about Vincent's unemployed status and arrogant behavior at home. Cordelia had hoped that seeing Kendrick's positive approach to his new venture might spark some competitiveness in Vincent. Resolved to disown Vincent if this attempt failed, the in-laws were prepared to cut ties with him during this move. We had intended to support Vincent towards independence, but that resolve shattered when we were treated as failures and incompetent from day one. Realizing he was truly abandoned by his entire family, Vincent broke down, begging me for money or food. I reiterated Cordelia's words, shook Vincent off, and drove away. Through the rearview mirror, I saw Vincent remained huddled and motionless. With a sigh, I thought of it as divine retribution for neglecting the in-laws who were willing to support him, and took a slightly longer route home. As for my husband and me, with Vincent gone, we were freed from the stress of being treated like servants and have been enjoying our new life in this new land. Kendrick and Tarek's company, though initially faced challenges during setup, gradually gained trust from those around us and is doing well. Kendrick, despite being busy, is happy working in the industry he loves alongside Tarek, which makes me happy as well. As the company is on track and expecting to get busier, I've decided to work part-time there to support Kendrick's endeavor. We keep in touch with the in-laws, occasionally visiting them for meals, maintaining a good relationship. We vowed to live each day without arrogance, grateful for the support from those around us, no matter how busy or difficult our situation may be. I am grateful to Kendrick, and Kendrick is grateful to me as we happily live our daily lives.
Grandma! This is Mia!
Kevin's girlfriend, Mia, seemingly quiet woman with fair skin, greeted us with a nervous smile. I quickly ushered them inside the house. It was for a meet and greet that Kevin had brought her over, and my daughter-in-law, Chloe, was in good spirits, eagerly asking how the two had met.
Evelyn, hurry up and serve them some coffee!
Chloe's mood had soured just minutes earlier. The reason was Kevin had first told his parents that Mia was pregnant. I was so shocked I lost my voice. Chloe showed some discomfort at the fact they were having a shotgun wedding.
We're serious about making this work. We know we're young, but please, allow us to marry.
Both were sincerely asking for their parents' permission to marry. As a grandmother, I realized it was not my place to comment and silently watched, moved by their demeanor. However, Chloe made a visibly displeased face and waved her hand in front of her own face.
A shotgun wedding is so tacky. Just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you have to marry, right? Isn't that right, Evelyn?
Suddenly turned to me.
What?
I let out, as Chloe directed a sardonic smile my way.
Yes, it's true. Just because there's a baby on the way doesn't necessarily mean marriage is a must.
Kevin looked momentarily saddened. I had anticipated such a reaction. But you two are choosing to move forward because of this baby. Whatever the case, it's something Kevin and Mia have decided together. No one else has the right to object. Maybe what we can do, Chloe, is to support them, don't you think? Chloe downed her mug of coffee in one go.
Evelyn, get me a refill, please.
She handed it over, then crossed her arms and sighed.
Well, opposing it is futile anyway. So, when are you planning the wedding? What? Oh, considering Mia's condition, we'd like to do it sooner rather than later. So, this means we're finally getting a break from parenting.
Chloe said reflectively, then turned towards me in the kitchen.
Now that we're going to be living as a family, we won't be needing a housekeeper anymore.
Can you leave?
What?
The sudden words from Chloe took everyone by surprise. My son Charles, Kevin, and Mia were all left speechless.
What am I supposed to do now?
My name is Evelyn. I'm a 70-year-old grandmother. I live with my only son Charles, his wife Chloe, and their family in a 2-generation home. Though it may seem happy from the outside, I've felt somewhat downcast since losing my husband a few years ago. Chloe, my son's wife, is outspoken and tends to say whatever comes to her mind, and while we're not on bad terms, I've felt her using me for convenience. When Chloe goes out with friends, she takes for granted that I'll do the household chores and even asks me to drive her to the station. Chloe seems to think living together in a two-generation home is her way of showing filial piety. Contrary to my wish for a quiet life after my husband's death, I find myself entangled in a complicated situation.
Come on, get up already.
From the bedroom of my son and his wife, Chloe's almost shrieking voice can be heard. She seems to be in a bad mood again. Though Charles was working till late last night, he was woken up at the usual time on his day off and hurried to get ready to go out. I quietly spoke to Charles when I encountered him in the washroom. "Charles, are you okay?" "I'm fine, got about 5 hours of sleep." Charles smiled gently at me through the mirror while drying his face with a towel. Lately, Charles has been looking pale, and I've been worried. Despite my concerns, Charles would brush it off with, "I'm fine," which was something my husband used to say. He kept working until one day, he suddenly collapsed and passed away. That memory is always with me, and I wish Charles could rest more on his days off. Loud footsteps approached. Chloe appears at the bathroom, frowning and visibly annoyed.
"How long are you going to wash your face? Hurry up, I'll be late for my meeting with friends."
"I'm sorry, I'll change right away." The meek Charles quickly left to change his clothes. Meanwhile, Chloe turned to me and handed over a note.
"Evelyn, this is the shopping list for today."
"Yes, I got it. Have fun with your friends.
The weather seems nice today.
Please wash the bed sheets as well." Chloe left without waiting for my reply. After watching her brazen departure, I sighed deeply. Even when my husband was alive, Chloe had always been bold in speaking her mind to us. In the beginning of our living together, "Don't hold back," I had said to Chloe, but as time went on, her aggressive nature became more apparent. Cooking, which Chloe disliked, fell to me. If she disliked a dish, she would push the plate away saying,
"I told you I can't eat this, didn't I?"
Or she would complain about wrinkles in the laundry I had folded. Still, since she was chosen by my son Charles, I tried to keep a quiet smile and avoid causing trouble, but since my husband passed, Chloe's attitude has become more extreme, tiring my spirit.
"Evelyn, you're staying home all day, right? Make sure the bath is ready for me when I get back."
Chloe said this without even looking at me as she left the house. Chloe goes out with her friends almost every week. Since the beginning of her marriage, she has seldom done housework or childcare, focusing more on her appearance and spending freely. She's very sociable, making acquaintances in various places. There were many instances that could have led to suspicions of infidelity when Chloe was younger, but Charles, she wouldn't do that. Trusted her without a doubt, so I didn't pursue it. I was surprised to see Charles, looking sleepy as he entered with his hands full of confectionery boxes upon returning from seeing off Chloe. "Oh, this? It's for Chloe's class reunion next week. She's planning to give them out."
"Really? All of this?"
Chloe doesn't want to be embarrassed. She keeps saying she doesn't want people to think we're living with our parents because we're struggling for money. I'm sorry, but just let her do as she pleases. Of course, it's all right, don't worry. Sitting in the chair, I felt an overwhelming sense of exhaustion. Eventually, I took the list Chloe had given me and went out for the shopping. My familiar shoes felt heavier than usual. Perhaps due to my age, I often feel a dull pain in my knees with every step. Yet, imagining Chloe's likely snide remarks about wasting gas, I gently stroked my knees, encouraging them to keep going. Returning home, sweating and carrying shopping bags in both hands, I set down the bags at the entrance and stretched my bent back when my grandson Kevin appeared. "Oh, Grandma, welcome back." No wonder you weren't home, you went out shopping. Kevin frowned slightly as he looked at the groceries I had bought. Kevin, the only son of Charles and Chloe, had become less visible around the house since starting his job last spring. Though we live together, he's often busy with work, coming home late and leaving early in the morning. And on his days off, he dresses up and goes out. It's rare for Kevin to be at home during the daytime on a weekend. Before I could even take off my shoes, Kevin took the shopping bags to the kitchen and began putting things away quickly. I glimpsed his expression and sensed a happy atmosphere.
Did something good happen?
Kevin smiled as he carefully placed eggs from a carton into the refrigerator.
Actually, there's someone I want to introduce to you. I'm thinking of bringing her home next week.
Introduce someone? As I processed what that meant, I realized my grandson had reached the age for such things. Introduce someone? Could it be what I'm thinking? It might be. Grandma, there's something I've been thinking about for a long time. Something you've been thinking about? Yes. I can't talk about it just yet, but I promise I will someday. But first, would you meet the person I want to introduce? Kevin spoke with excitement, and I couldn't help but smile. I was curious about what he had been thinking about, but more so about the kind of woman he would bring home. Growing up, Kevin had never brought a girlfriend home. His absence from home since starting his job, I realized, might have been due to dating. For the first time in a while, I forgot about the usual annoyances and hummed a tune while cleaning. Of course, I had informed Chloe and Charles about this matter, but Charles only muttered, "Marriage, huh?" while Chloe seemed unamused. On their next day off, Kevin brought the woman he wanted to introduce to our home. Chloe had asked me to clean up the front of the house, and while I was sprinkling water, I became a bit wary when an unfamiliar car stopped, but seeing my grandson waving from the driver's seat with a smile, I felt relieved. The car was a rental. Perhaps Kevin had gone to the trouble of renting a car to pick her up. I almost laughed inwardly, thinking Kevin must be quite smitten.
Grandma! This is Mia!
I couldn't help but smile at the sight of my grandson's happy face as he introduced the woman next to him. Kevin's girlfriend, Mia, seemingly quiet woman with fair skin, greeted us with a nervous smile. I quickly led the two inside. It was for a meet and greet that Kevin had brought her over, and Chloe, in a good mood, eagerly asked how the two had become acquainted. Chloe and Charles sat at a table set for four, facing Kevin and Mia, while I prepared coffee for everyone in the kitchen.
Evelyn, hurry up and serve them some coffee.
Chloe's mood had turned sour just minutes before. The reason was that Kevin had first told his parents that Mia was pregnant. I was so shocked I lost my voice. The previously warm atmosphere froze in an instant, with Kevin showing a seriousness which he usually does not. Chloe displayed some discomfort at the fact they were having a shotgun wedding.
We're serious about making this work. We might be young, but please, allow us to marry.
Both were earnestly asking their parents' permission to marry. As a grandmother, I realized it was not my place to comment and silently watched, moved by their demeanor. Watching Kevin plead before his parents, I felt tears welling up. Of course, we support your marriage. For the baby's sake, it's better to marry soon and settle down mentally.
Thanks, Dad,
Kevin said with a smile, looking at Mia. Chloe made a visibly displeased face and waved her hand in front of her own face.
Shotgun weddings are so tacky. Can you even explain how this happened, Mia?
Taken aback by such an unexpected question, Mia was surprised.
What?
And looked down at the table. Kevin quickly placed his hand on her shoulder. Times have changed, this kind of marriage isn't unusual anymore. Besides, we have our own ways of thinking and are ready to work hard.
Kevin, you offered to marry because Mia got pregnant, didn't you? Are you sure this is a well-thought-out decision? Our relationship was serious from the start, aiming for marriage. It just happened that the baby gave us a good opportunity. Just because there's a baby doesn't mean you have to marry, right? Isn't that right, Evelyn?
Chloe suddenly turned to me.
What?
I let out, as Chloe directed a sardonic smile my way. Recalling a TV segment on single mothers we watched as a family recently, indeed. Having a baby doesn't necessarily lead to marriage, but this situation seemed different. Yes, it's true.
Just because there's a baby on the way doesn't mean marriage is a must.
Kevin looked momentarily saddened. I had anticipated such a reaction. So, I had prepared my next words carefully, thinking I'd proudly tell Kevin about it later. But, you two are choosing to move forward because of this baby. Whatever the case, it's a decision made by Kevin and Mia together. No one else has the right to object. Maybe what we can do, Chloe, is to support them, don't you think?
An old person making irresponsible statements.
What would she say next? Everyone probably wondered, but Chloe downed her mug of coffee in one go.
Evelyn, get me a refill, please.
She handed it over, then crossed her arms and sighed.
Well, opposing it is futile anyway. So, when are you planning the wedding? What? Oh, considering Mia's condition, we'd like to do it sooner rather than later. So, this means we're finally getting a break from parenting.
Chloe said wistfully, then turned to face me, who was standing in the kitchen.
Since the family will be living together from now on, can we ask you, the no longer needed housekeeper, to leave? What? My son is getting married, and we want to live with just our cherished family from now on.
Charles, taken aback by Chloe's sudden words, and both Kevin and Mia were left speechless in shock.
Once Kevin's child is born, they'll likely live here for a while, right? We don't want to trouble you with the baby's night crying.
No, I'm fine with that. If there's anything I can do.
I can't think of any advantage to living with someone who's likely to become a care-dependent elderly. You're no longer needed, so could you please leave?
Feeling as if my heart was being torn out, I didn't want to worry Kevin and the others, so
You're absolutely right.
Tried to smile bravely. At that time, I didn't take Chloe's words seriously. But day by day, Chloe's efforts to drive me out of the house became more blatant. Please leave as soon as possible. She kept on saying so. When I consulted with Charles, the timid man could only hold his head and stay silent. What was especially shocking was the realization that Chloe was almost entirely in control of the inheritance from my husband, including the house. My husband, being a man of small desires, had left everything to our son Charles with the intention that all his property would be passed on to him. Effectively, I had no assets or property of my own. And since Charles was under Chloe's thumb, I was stunned to find myself stripped of both my home and inheritance.
What should I do now?
I murmured while looking through old albums of my late husband and I in the middle of the night. He was always gentle, never angry, just calm. Was it his nature that allowed Chloe to become so selfish? If so, I felt like the cause was both my husband and myself. Months passed. Despite the daily harassment from Chloe, unable to leave, I lived enduring it all. One day, while I was taking a shower, the water suddenly turned cold. I worried it was broken, but it seemed Chloe had turned off the water heater's power. Thinking she probably didn't know I was in the bath, I turned the power back on, but it was immediately turned off again. Realizing it was harassment.
Could you not turn off the power while I'm bathing?
I asked.
It's a waste of electricity.
Only to be shouted at. There were even times in the dead of winter when I had to rinse off with cold water. Exhausted, I consulted Charles.
Could you bathe while Chloe is out?
But he could only weakly suggest. Wondering how he became so spineless, I sighed in disbelief. Even as Chloe said with a snide smile every time we met,
"Please rent an apartment and live there as soon as possible."
I was powerless to do anything. Amidst these oppressive days, a piece of bright news was brought in. Mia had finally given birth to a healthy baby. For a moment, Chloe and I celebrated wholeheartedly, tears in our eyes as we laughed together.
"Now, if only you'd leave the house quickly, I'd truly be happy."
Chloe's smile suddenly turned cold as she spoke to me. I doubted the woman's character before me. Charles looked away, pretending to be engrossed in the newspaper, as if he had nothing to do with it. Though Chloe was the one who strongly wished for Kevin and his wife to stay at our home, she wanted nothing to do with the baby's care. I did everything I could to help Mia, who always deeply thanked me despite being overwhelmed with caring for the baby. "Thank you so much for everything. Don't worry about it. You're going through the hardest time right now, and if there's anything I can do to help, I will." That was a heartfelt sentiment from me. After a particularly busy few months, Kevin suddenly said to me,
"I have something important to tell you."
"I'm listening," I responded while preparing dinner in the kitchen. Without stopping my chopping, I waited for Kevin to speak.
"Grandma, I want to talk to you alone. There's a place I want you to come to this Sunday. Let's keep it a secret from Mom and Dad."
My hand holding the knife stopped. A secret from Chloe. When I looked at Kevin, he had a subtle smile as if trying to hide his joy. It was a look he often had as a child when he was plotting something secretly to make me happy. Kevin had always been close to me and my late husband since he was little. Looking back, maybe Chloe felt that her only son's affections were being stolen by me and my husband. That wouldn't have been fun for Chloe. Probably that feeling continues, and Kevin realized that when I'm with Chloe, I feel intimidated and can't speak my mind. I felt dearly loved by my kind grandson and his wife. Next Sunday, Kevin, Mia, and the baby led me to a newly built apartment, about a 10-minute walk from our house. Kevin shared that he had purchased this apartment before the baby was born as we walked. I was deeply surprised by his decisiveness to buy it without consulting Chloe, who had strongly suggested living together. "Sorry for making you walk, Grandma."
"I need to strengthen my legs anyway. This distance is nothing."
I lightly tapped my thin legs. Though just a 10-minute walk made my knees ache, I resolved not to mention it. The new apartment room was furnished simply, with boxes in the corner. Presumably belonging to Mia, who used to live alone before she got married. Kevin, familiar with the place, started making coffee in the kitchen, while Mia was putting the baby to sleep in another room.
"So, there's something I wanted to ask you."
Kevin began speaking seriously after a brief pause. The ticking of the clock on the wall seemed unusually loud.
"Would you live with us?"
I was so surprised by the sudden proposal that I nearly dropped my mug. Kevin looked at me earnestly. Thinking it was a joke, I returned a strained smile, and Kevin looked away distantly.
"Ever since I was a child, I couldn't stand seeing Mom treating you so badly."
"Well, your mom has a bit of a strong personality, but..."
"You're always being told to leave the house, aren't you? Dad won't talk back, and I can't stand to see you being treated so poorly by Mom anymore."
"What are you talking about? I'm being treated fine."
"Remember when I said I had someone I wanted to introduce to you? I've been thinking about something for a long time."
I vaguely remembered such a conversation. It was a while ago, but I distinctly remembered Kevin speaking with an implication of determination when he talked about getting married.
"I've been cherished by you and Grandpa since I was little, and I loved both of you. But somehow, I felt Mom was very rude towards you too. I've always watched the two of you and thought that when I grew up, I wanted to help. Kevin, did you really think that way?
Kevin leaned forward decisively, looking into my eyes.
Let's live together. There's no need for you to suffer alone in that house.
Unable to respond, Mia quietly returned and sat next to Kevin. Mia seemed to have listened to the conversation from the next room and looked at me solemnly, understanding the context. Kevin told me about it. Would it be possible for you to live with us? That's a very kind offer. I'm truly happy. But I don't want to intrude on your newlywed life. That's not a problem at all. We need your help as an experienced parent, and it would be reassuring to have you live with us. And apparently, Mia had also been subjected to Chloe's harassment, feeling disgusted with her. Mia had been scorned for having a shotgun wedding and had been yelled at to quiet the baby during night crying. Initially, Mia had wanted to move back to her parents' house after giving birth, but...
So you hate being with me, I understand.
Chloe would say so every time and Mia was tired of explaining.
We're asking you. Please, would you live with us?
Kevin and Mia pleaded together. Silently watching them, I felt tears streaming down my face.
Thank you.
At that moment, no other words came to mind. Thus, it was decided that I would live with Kevin and his family. Of course, this news would soon reach Chloe's ears. As soon as I agreed to move in, Kevin apparently contacted Chloe and Charles. This was something I had asked Kevin to do. I was certain Chloe would strongly oppose to it. Telling myself this was my final battle, I left Kevin and his family at the apartment and headed home, opening the front door. As soon as I returned, Chloe summoned me to the living room and began yelling at me furiously.
What do you mean you're going to live with Kevin? You're joking, right?
No.
I'm grateful for Kevin's offer and I've decided to accept it. You're kidding, right?
Chloe scoffed. Beside her, Charles frowned, his face troubled.
Moving in with a newlywed couple? That doesn't sound sane. It's obvious you'll be a burden to Kevin.
I was worried about that too. But both of them have accepted me. I want to honestly accept their feelings.
How could this be happening? You say something too, will you?
Until then, Charles had been silent, now staring at Chloe with a vacant look in his eyes. His gaze was powerless, his body seemed to slump. Chloe, I want a divorce.
What? What is it with you all of a sudden?
I can't take this life anymore. Charles, usually quiet, raised his voice, causing Chloe to step back in surprise. He stood up, confronted Chloe directly, and glared at her with intense eyes.
I can't continue with you. Not just your attitude towards me, but what you've done to Mom all this time, I could never forgive. What the heck? You're not used to getting angry, don't start now. The problem here right now is about Evelyn living with Kevin, isn't it? Mom is going to live with Kevin. That's the end of that discussion. Now, it's about you and me. I can't live with you anymore. Why is this suddenly coming up? I've been tolerating your attitude because Mom put up with it. But if Mom's moving out to live with Kevin, that's a different story. Now it's about you and me. I want to divorce you for all the suspicious acts and alleged affairs since we were young. I haven't done anything like that.
Chloe, unusually flustered, looked away, her eyes darting around. Charles was gentle, but when he got angry as a child, he was unstoppable. Probably, Chloe had never seen Charles angry. When he did get angry, he would meticulously prepare to thoroughly defeat his opponent. As expected, Charles casually pulled out a large brown envelope from his company bag and spread its contents messily on the table. It was a report from an infidelity investigation conducted years ago, proving Chloe's affair without needing to read the details. Chloe was speechless and slumped into her seat. Without another word, Charles returned to his room. I noticed the living room curtains fluttering. So, the window was open. Feeling the gentle breeze coming through the window, I wondered if our embarrassing conversation had been overheard by the neighbors and massaged my temples. "Chloe, I can't say anything about you and Charles, but I hope you two can talk it through properly." Chloe just sat there silently, not answering. Then, it came to a lawsuit because Chloe refused to divorce, but the investigation into the affair was the final blow, and the divorce was finalized. I heard rumors that Chloe didn't change her aggressive self even after the divorce, and people gradually distanced themselves from her, leading her to live lonely days. By the time the divorce was finalized, I had already been living with Kevin and the others for 6 months now. I was feeling happy every day, helping with the care of my great-grandchild. Then one day,
"Grandma, Dad's here."
Returning from a walk with my great-grandchild, Charles was sitting in the apartment living room with a serious expression on his face. Seeing my son's face for the first time in 6 months since I left the house, he seemed somewhat healthier. After laying down the great-grandchild I was holding to bed, I smiled at Charles. "Have you been able to sleep since the divorce?"
"Thanks to you, I've been getting about 8 hours.
Charles said this with a brighter expression than I had ever seen before. That's right, my son was someone who used to show such innocent smiles. Even though he has aged and grown a beard, I couldn't help but reminisce about his youthful appearance and laugh bitterly at the comparison to his present self.
"So, what brings you here today? Don't tell me you want to live with us?"
Well, that's actually why I came. Of course, I'll contribute to the new home expenses as well."
"Of course. You're now able to properly manage your finances after the divorce."
"I've already settled things with Kevin and Mia. We're thinking of purchasing this apartment with the inheritance left by Dad, who passed away, in a way that the two of them would agree with. And from now on, I'll be able to protect you, Mom." Originally, Charles was timid by nature but never was a weak man. I'm sure it was the result of him carefully considering his future and taking action after the divorce from Chloe. I looked at my son, my grandson, Mia, and my great-grandchild in turn and closed my eyes. The image of my late husband appeared behind my eyelids. With a peaceful expression.
"Isn't that wonderful?"
It seemed like my late husband was smiling. "What's so wonderful about it? You've put me through so much trouble. If you had lived a little longer, maybe I would have been happier." Thinking this, I then reconsidered. My current happiness is thanks to Kevin and Mia, who wished for my happiness. My gratitude towards these two cannot be fully expressed in words. Suddenly, my great-grandchild started crying as if a fire had been lit, and I quickly rushed to the bed and picked him up. After rocking him a few times, my great-grandchild fell completely at ease in my arms and started breathing softly in sleep.